Hello everybody, I'm Catriona Morten. I'm a sensory-motor psychotherapist, and today I'd like to talk to you about why we are so affected by our childhood experiences. But before I jump into that, if you're enjoying these videos, give us a like, subscribe to our channel, because it helps us really get the word out to many more of you. Why are we so affected by our childhood experiences? This is something I get asked constantly because it makes no sense. My life is so different now. Everything is completely different to how it was when I was growing up. So why do those things still follow me? Why do I still get affected by these things? Why do I behave in particular ways? Why can't I do X, Y, or Z? While we don't always need to go delving into the past, and for some people that's not possible, because a lot of my clients have very little or no memory of when they were growing up. They have huge voids and chunks missing. But that doesn't matter, because what we've been through, our body absorbs it. Our body will tell the story. Our body reacts and does certain things in certain circumstances that are directly related to how we had to adapt when we were growing up. If we look through the lens of a child, then it can be really revealing as to how our childhood experiences have impacted on us and what sense have we made of them. What do we learn to believe about ourselves? When we're little, then we're very vulnerable, we're very adaptive, our brains are very plastic, neuroplasticity, where everything's just forming. We haven't got any sense of ourself. Our sense of ourself is based on what experiences we've had, how people have treated us and reacted to us. And those things, if they're very consistent, then we will adapt coping mechanisms and behaviours to suit that environment. If we've always been told that expressing anything, any kind of emotion is annoying, silly, too much, then if we're consistently given that message, then we find ways of just dampening those things down, keeping our feelings to ourselves, having it all going on, but looking perfectly okay. If our environment has been really volatile and unpredictable and difficult, then we might learn how to be invisible and to disappear, how to not be noticed from our behaviours, our movements, even the way that we breathe, what we're going to say. If we're consistently given the message, children should be seen and not heard, then we'll learn to be quiet, we'll learn to be invisible. And those things get hardwired into us. We adapt and it becomes just a part of us. We don't even have to think about it. It's unconscious. And so as we grow up, we're not aware that we're doing these things. We've learnt to adapt and we do it brilliantly. If we're not able to be free and expressive and have an opinion and be silly and just do what is spontaneous in the moment, if that's not been okay, then we learn to rein those things in. We learn that that's okay for other people, but not for us. If you can look through the child's eyes and say, okay, when you were told this, what sense would you make of that? What would you believe about yourself? Because when we're little, the adults have to be right. They know best. They're right. We don't have the kind of capacity, unless our parents say to us, oh, sometimes, mummies and daddies don't get things right and everybody makes mistakes and we're not all right all of the time. If we're not given that message, then we don't learn to question those things. We only learn to question ourselves. Even if it's not what we do, but if there's a lot of arguments and fighting going on in the house, little children will believe that it's something to do with them. If they're ignored by their parents, They'll believe that there's something lacking in them. If only I was more, if only I was different, then they would take notice of me, or then they would love me. Or if only I were more beautiful or more clever, then I would get the praise that I need. So then we learn to believe things about ourselves. We form belief systems that say, I'm not worthy of X, Y, or Z, or I'm not good enough, nobody likes me, I'm always annoying. And we make those things true. They're unconscious. We don't know that those things lie underneath, but they really affect the way that we behave, particularly around other people. If we're in company and would like to be able to express an opinion, to show up a bit more, to just be a bit more expressive and be heard and be seen, not in a showy-offy way, but just so that we can have a voice. But instead, we go really quiet. We can't find the wherewithal to actually say something, do something. We're always sitting on the edges of the room and not in the middle. We'll hide at the back if we're at any kind of meeting or conference, whereas we'd actually like to be able to sit nearer the front so we can see and hear better. But having that attention on us can feel absolutely unbearable if those childhood experiences have been difficult. And often when somebody's telling me about the things that they struggle with, when I say, okay, so what could that have been a solution to when you were growing up? How would that have made sense of your environment? How would it have served you well? Because we don't just do things to make life difficult for ourselves. They're adapted behaviours. And when we can understand why that would have been a good, appropriate behaviour for the environment we were growing up in, it can help us have a bit more compassion and understanding of why we behave, we act in certain ways. All of the coping adaptive behaviours when we're little, they're great, but they might be holding us back and they might not be serving us well. If, for instance, we're at a job interview, we want to be able to express ourselves, to think on our feet, to be able to be reactive and to be creative and to be confident and look and sound like we know what we're talking about and we have belief and passion about things. But if our coping mechanism said that when all eyes are on us, we go really quiet and invisible, then we might come out of that interview and go, oh, why did I not say that? Why did I just go quiet when they asked me that? And how often do we do that? I mean, we all do that to a degree anyway, but for people who have grown up in those environments, it's a consistent thing. It just keeps happening and it really holds them back. If we have to be quiet, invisible, shrink, if we freeze and feel like we're not entitled to take up any space, then it leaves others to take that space up and to kind of trample on us a little bit and trample over us. And that can build up a lot of resentment against ourselves and against other people. And then we can start getting these narratives in our head. None of them are ever good and positive and never very helpful. And we just compound those things. When we can have some understanding about, yes, that would have really served me well back then we know it's a much younger part of us that comes in. If we've had to learn how to numb all our feelings, either because we've had too much pain or we've been told not to show that, then that's not going to be helpful in a relationship. It's not going to be helpful to know how we feel about things, what we like, what really makes us us, and be able to have our own say and have our own presence when we're with someone. If we shut down and we can't have a voice, then we're left with our head. What do we think about that? And we're not getting that full reaction from the body that says, oh yeah, they seem okay, but actually I don't feel good. I'm these people, I don't know why yet, but I'm going to trust my body. If you haven't got access to that, you've just got access to your head. And brilliant though heads are and brains and can be super, super clever, we're really missing a whole lot of information and pleasure and joy and expression when we haven't got access to our feelings and our emotions. And so we need to be able to learn how to kind of counter-reverse that. Understanding and knowing plays a big part because it helps us be able to soften that critical narrative that goes on in our head. We can have a bit more understanding of that's the way it was back then, and it's difficult for my child parts to actually believe that it's safe because it's hardwired. And so we know that we have to have a bit of a retraining thing going on because that's automatic, that's procedural, and we've got to make sure that what we do is accessible, doable, repetitive, and we can learn how to try and make that more procedural. And we can do it, it's very, very possible. But it really helps to quieten down the negative thoughts about ourselves. Because this is about us and it really shows up when we're with other people, we have to give ourselves permission. We have to have a different kind of relationship with ourselves so that we really understand what it is that we're doing. If it's always been, we lose our voice, we never can find the words what to say, then not only do we do that when we're in a therapy session, that we find ways of settling the nervous system so that we can have the words that are coming up. If the words are just kind of disappearing out of our head, then we're going offline. So when you're sitting, when you're having a conversation with somebody, if you're taking your awareness to your feet, are you moving your feet on the floor? Can you feel them? Can you feel your shoes moving on the floor? Is it carpet? Is it slippy? Can you feel your feet and your toes moving inside of your shoes? Can you do them one at a time? Can you do them both together? It gives you another focus and it gives you a sense of doing something in the present moment that you're in control of. Can we give ourselves permission to speak? And I know a lot of people say, oh, I don't, if I talk to myself, then does that mean I'm going mad? Nope, not at all. Give yourself permission in an empty room. How comfortable do you feel just putting some words out there? How comfortable do you feel actually just moving your arms, making some movements? If you know that your breath goes really little, what helps your breath get bigger? If you know that you shrink, get some strength in there, and if you feel yourself shrinking in, join in with it, give everything a really good squeeze, and when you let it go, do things actually expand a little bit? If so, brilliant. Do it again. Allow yourself that expansion. Bring into the conscious what you're doing. If you know that your chest collapses and your spine comes forward, what's it like when you're just on your own to lengthen your spine, to bring your head up, to bring your shoulders back? What does it feel like sitting in this position? If you're not comfortable with it, give yourself a few probes. I'm allowed to sit like this. I'm allowed to lengthen my spine. I'm allowed to hold my head up high. What little narrative comes up to say otherwise? And then just gently challenge that. Put something else in place. Say, well, right here, right now, it's okay for me to sit and lengthen my spine and put my shoulders back and lift my chin a little bit. And it's okay to look around from this position. Get comfortable with it. Try it on. Give yourself permission. When you know what happens to you in social situations and you know that that has been a procedural, learned coping mechanism from your past because that was useful then, know what those things are and work on doing the opposite. If you shrink and you don't take up any space, practice taking up space. When it becomes more into your conscious, it becomes easier to manage that when you're in company and when you're with people. And if it's going to be something that makes you nervous, you've got to be super on it. Have your coping mechanisms ready. Can you squeeze the muscles in your bottom? That's a really good one. Nobody can see you doing it, and we've always got access to those muscles. Find something in you that you can do. You've got control over, you're working it, and it's not about everybody else that's around there. It's amazing when you practice these things, how much they come into your everyday, your normal. And before you know it, they will be a lot more procedural. When I'm working with my clients, I quite often say, can you remember what it was like 6 months ago? Can you remember what you reported it was like, 12 months ago? If we feel super, super visible and it's like, oh my God, it's excruciating, that can make it difficult going outside. Practice just standing in the garden. Take a cup of tea out, stand in the garden, give yourself permission to just be. Notice what it's like. When you know what's difficult, break it into little steps, easy, manageable steps, knowing that the path that you're on, you're not going to get there immediately. Don't go for the really tricky things. When you build those foundation steps up, they're the ones that will really hold you in good stead when you need them. If it's been very, very difficult to have an opinion, you always get shouted down. And that can be really compounded by school as well. Some teachers, they don't like being questioned, they don't like people asking difficult questions or having too much of a say. That can just compound all of those things. It can make having an opinion difficult. So practice with yourself on what are your opinions on things. Do I like that? Why do I like that? What do I think of this? Think it out loud. Practice having an opinion on things, because it's you that has to feel comfortable with it. Outside of here isn't going to change. It's always going to stay the same. The world is full of some lovely, wonderful people. But it's also full of people that might remind you of your parents, critical people, picky people. We need to know that we can give ourselves permission to do these things, that it's okay for us. And then it's much harder for anybody else to kind of shut us down or try and put us down, make us less than we are. We have a right to be the way that we want to be. I don't tell my clients how they should be. They come to me and say, I'm struggling with this, I would like to change this. And so we look at what are the origins of that, how does that play out in the present moment, what are the physical things, what comes into your head. And then I get people on the path of change, the way that they want to do. So they're practicing these things all the time. And before you know it, things are just different. They're easier. We're able to show up a little bit more, be seen, have an opinion, have an expression, have feelings and emotions, all of which are very, very important when we want to be connected with ourselves and able to connect with other people, other good humans. So I hope that helps explain why we pull these things, why they follow us wherever we go. We can move around, we can change our circumstances, but if these things are innate within us, then it's us that we need to work on. And it doesn't have to be a massive, huge job. It can just be okay, I'm going to relearn those things. I'm going to start doing things differently. I'm going to start with me, not about other people. So I hope that helps make sense of the past and the present, and I hope it just gives you some food for thought and maybe some ideas about things that you could do and practice yourself. So if you found this video useful, interesting, then please give us a like and subscribe to our channel, and I look forward to seeing you again very soon. Okay, bye!